on the panel are Dr. Dominique Monnet, Professor Philipe Hartemann, Rose Gallagher, and Elio Rossi. I'd like to introduce you Dominique Monnet. Dr. Monnet is head of the Antimicrobial Resistance and Healthcare Associated Infections Program at ECDC. You are probably aware that ECDC is the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And well, Dr. Monnet, before joining ECDC, worked in French hospitals at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States and a similar organization in Denmark. He participated in many working groups and networks, both at the national level in Denmark, France, and also at the European level and globally. And he is also an author of numerous scientific publications as well. Dominique Monnet is there at the right-hand side. And Rose Gallagher. Rose Gallagher is the professional lead for infection prevention and control at the Royal College of Nursing in the UK. And she provides professional advice across the UK on infection prevention and AMR. And she represents the Royal College at local, regional, national, and international events. And she has also an advisory role in the NHS. And she was awarded an MBE, the most excellent order of the British Empire, for services to infection prevention and control by the Queen of the UK. And Professor Philipe Hartemann, he is a professor of public health at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Lorraine in Nancy, France. He is member of the Scientific Committee on Biocidal Products of the French Agency for Food and for Environmental and Occupational Health and Safety, but in the past he was a member of numerous committees, national and international, at WHO level, EU level, NATO level, for environmental health. He was advisor for numerous programs of international cooperation in risk assessment, sanitary control, and guidelines proposals. And he is author of an immense number of scientific publications. You can find all his publications, or in any case, a link to them at the website of the conference. And Dr. Elio Rossi, I have introduced him already in the first part of this conference. Dr. Monnet, what are the key challenges ECDC is facing in relation to AMR? And do you believe, based on what you have heard this morning, that there is some potential in camp treatment to help reduce the AMR problem?
I remarked in the context of the conference today, you've seen various levels of antibiotic use in the community, in the different member states. There have been European Antibiotic Awareness Day campaigns since 2008, and the member states have taken on board their own activities, their own campaign. And antibiotic use in the community is decreasing, though slowly, but sometimes in a statistically significant fashion, in several member states. There's still a lot to do. That's illustrated by the map that you showed, but it is changing. So the challenge for the community would be how to make sure that those countries with a high level of antibiotic use, in many cases, unnecessary antibiotic use for viral infections, viral respiratory tract infections, for example, how do these countries get on board? How do these countries also implement their own campaign? And then how to reach parts of the population, I think, in every country that are less receptive to messages, possibly because of the level of education or because of a different culture or different native language, and how do we reach those populations?
One way to reach patients is for patients to educate patients. You know, this peer information giving is extremely important.
When I mentioned the mandate of the agency, risk assessment and risk communication, I deliberately didn't mention risk management,
Okay.
because this is the responsibility of the member states.
Yeah.
So what we can do as an EU agency that doesn't have a mandate of risk management is to provide the tools.
Yes.
So member states and professionals in member states can actually do the risk management. I mentioned the European Antibiotic Awareness Day campaigns. We provide materials, tools, visuals, including patient stories, so professionals in member states can build the campaign. You may have seen the website of European Antibiotic Awareness Day, and under the key messages that we address to the general public that we provide about self-medication, there are a few things that we say the general public could ask to their pharmacist. I would agree that going to consult a doctor is not a good approach, but self-medication with other things than antibiotics may be a good thing. If you can demonstrate that we would need more evidence than what has been shown right now, that certain CAM or CAM medicine would work, and there would be good evidence for this, there may be a possibility to add them to that list. But again, we don't have a mandate for risk management, and we cannot recommend something. It would just be part of the options in that list for self-medication. And that's the only opening that I can see.
We know that nurses have an increased role in public health nowadays. And what role can they have in limiting the threat posed by AMR?
The contribution that we bring to standards of care and safety. So it's a very broad brush approach, and complementary and alternative medicines are not really talked about within the concept of antimicrobial resistance. They are used in some care settings such as palliative care, pain therapies, oncology, etc. But the issue is not always that it's reliant upon the individual practitioner to have an interest in CAM. Actually, there are some very practical considerations for us under our nursing registrations to be able to use and practice complementary therapies. It impacts on our indemnity, depending on our employer's perspective and our professional role. It has to sit within our role as nurses. So if we're a holistic therapist but not a nurse, then it's a very different perspective.
If antibiotic use in outpatient and primary care is reduced, does that affect the problem of antibiotic use and serious infections in hospital? Or are these two independent phenomena?
I've been in this business since 1986. And after so many years, I think it's compartments, which means antibiotic use in animals will affect resistance in bacteria from animals, in particular Salmonella and Campylobacter, and these we acquire from food. So if a human has a Salmonella or Campylobacter infection that is resistant to antibiotics, it's not because of antibiotic use in humans, it's because of antibiotic in animals. Now let's take the common bacteria in the community. Strep pneumonia. Strep pneumonia, we don't acquire it from food. It's children that spit at each other, and then they pass it to their siblings, and then they pass it to the old people in the family, and everybody gets strep pneumonia. If these children are exposed to antibiotics, the strep pneumonia will be resistant to antibiotics. Strep pneumonia is not a bacterium that is responsible for healthcare-associated infection, but that would be an extremely rare case. So then there is E. coli. E. coli is somewhere in between. There are E. coli in animals. If they're resistant, probably because the animals received antibiotic. We acquire the E. coli from food. It's a common cause of resistant bacteria and infection in the community, in particular urinary tract infections. And it's also a common cause of a certain fraction of healthcare-associated infections. So some patients may enter with resistant E. coli, may enter the hospital, they receive antibiotic, it's selected, and they get an infection with E. coli in the hospital. But if you talk Klebsiella pneumonia, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Acinetobacter, even MRSA, these are healthcare-associated pathogens. and community use does not affect them. So I think there are really different compartments, which means we tend to promote the idea now that everyone is responsible. And we finish by pointing at each other saying, look, it's the hospitals, or look, it's the community doctors say it's the vets. No, we all have our own responsibility. To finish to your exact question, it may have a small impact because of the exposure and because of the story that I explained for E. coli and possibly for other bacteria, but it's a small impact.
I would like to add, so our challenge is travel or travelers and long-term health care. So that means people. It has been done quite a decade ago, a study in Sweden with students looking for antibiotic-resistant bacteria in stool before holidays and after holidays. Students, they traveled to India, for example, they went back with what we are calling superbugs, that means antibiotic-resistant bacteria against quite all antibiotics at the level of 75% from Turkey, from, I don't like to make the ranking of the country, but not only India. And so this is a real hazard for us because now, and not only hazard but also a challenge because now, speaking only about European countries, we have now not written guidelines to isolate patients coming from different countries when they are entering hospitals systematically. It's the same in Netherlands, in UK probably, because we have got so much outbreaks after the hospitalization of such a patient, so now we are really careful.
This morning you saw something in the UK about patients and doctors' information leaflets.
And we are trying to make a flyer to all the patients to inform the patient which are the complementary medicine point in each hospital. This is one.
In the UK, we're really promoting people going to pharmacists before GPs. We are years behind our cousins in the continent with this, and where it's expected and normal to go to a pharmacist first. So I'm just wondering about the role of pharmacists in promoting potential alternatives or advice on complementary therapies and being part of the discussion.
Well, we started with doctors because we thought this was a part of the JPI-AMR proposal, and then during the course of the project, there were the patients, and we said, of course, the pharmacists should be there because so many patients will go for these upper respiratory tract infections to a pharmacist.
So I can report something about pharmacists in Germany, and the pharmacist organization have own courses in naturopathy and complementary medicine. And these courses are together with the Association of Natural Medicine, different association, different curriculums, and they have all these treatments, you know, here from Ayurvedic medicine, phytotherapy, and so on. Everything is inside the courses, and they're well educated to help the patient if they have questions for over-the-counter medication in the field of complementary medicine.
Dr. Monnet, I would like to ask you a question with respect to your ECDC mandate again. Is it within your mandate to analyze all these different socioeconomic and other factors which influence prescription and demand for antibiotics? Analyze the different roles and impact of different players like pharmacists and others, or maybe also the impact of certain tools, so that there's a sort of European learning process from analyzing all these factors and policies. Is that within your mandate, or is
the mandate is for communicable diseases? We're touching at antibiotic consumption because historically the surveillance of antibiotic consumption was done by macrobiologists. So they started this as a research project a long time ago. And when the surveillance network were to be integrated as part of ECDC routine activities, surveillance of healthcare-associated infections, surveillance of antibiotic resistance, surveillance of tuberculosis, surveillance of HIV, all these were integrated. And there was a question mark for surveillance of antibiotic consumption. And the decision was made to also put it at ECDC, but quite frankly, it could have been like for surveillance of antibiotic consumption in animals at the EMA. But it's at ECDC, but it's an exception.
Is it then a mandate of DG Health to help the European decision makers to understand these factors?
I think it's a research project. Well, what you're talking about is a research project that would offer a snapshot of the determinants for antibiotic consumption in Europe. DG Santé had a project called ARNA and founded a project called ARNA that was delivered 2 to 3 years ago that analyzes some of the determinants of antibiotic consumption in Europe.
This is the end of this session, and that means that the panel will see some changes in the sense that we have to say goodbye for the moment, at least, to Rose and Elio. Thank you so much for being part of the panel and being part of the discussion and for your contributions.
Thank you.